Hey everybody, David Hauser here with part 2 of my video series regarding stabilization. So in part 1 really covered stabilizer lengths, how that will affect your sight picture, picking the right lengths for you, and also the weight ratios, a good starting point, some baselines to kind of give you some insight on what's going to work best for you and build off of it from there. But today I really want to talk about how weights are going to affect your sight picture and what things you can do and test to try to get your bow to aim as well as you possibly can, and run through a few issues here that if you're having them, something that I'm going to point out maybe you can do to fix it. So stay tuned, and hopefully this video helps you guys out. So I'm going to use this for a reference point, an aiming reference, whether you use a pin or a dot. This is what this is going to simulate. I'm going to use this target face here to kind of show you what, if you're seeing certain things in your sight picture, what you can do with your stabilization setup to adjust that. So obviously ideally we want to sit here perfectly in the center of the X. However, a lot of times for me personally, I'll get a low hold. So I want to sit here 6 o'clock X, or bottom of the 10 ring or wherever we're aiming, or you're sitting there aiming good and it just wants to kind of dip out the bottom while you're aiming and going through your shot. And that's something you can fix pretty easily with your stabilization setup. So what you can do about that, if you're getting a low hold, you want to dip below the dot or kind of sit in bottom side, what you can do is you can either remove weight from your front bar or you can add weight to your back bar. And by add weight or subtract weight, what I mean is, like, if I'm having a low hold, like sitting bottom of the X or whatever it may be, I'll maybe shave an ounce off the front and see how that reacts, or I'll add 2 ounces to the back. Not talking a ton of weight, just subtle changes like that that really can fine-tune your sight picture and make the bow aim as well as you possibly can. So just subtle changes like that, just an ounce here or 2 ounces there, try to get it that point up in the center a little bit better. Then the opposite's going to happen. Say you're sitting here and aiming good and it just wants to float up top, float up above the X ring or sit top side of it, or you're getting a lot of high misses. What that tells me is the opposite, where maybe you can add a weight to the front bar or you can take some weight off the back bar. Same small increments, 1 to 2 ounces at a time. See how that's going to affect your sight picture, and hopefully it'll get you down in the dot and you can stay centered a little bit longer. But anytime I'm getting a high or low hold like this and it's not wanting to sit directly in the center, what I'll adjust with that is usually my weight ratio. So I'll either take weight or add weight to the front bar or the back bar, whichever situation you're having, whether it be a high or low hold. Just try what I just went through there with the adding or subtracting weight, and hopefully it'll get you aiming down in the center a little bit easier. So now that I covered like the high and low holds, that how you can affect that with your weight ratio. Another thing I want to point out also is like a left to right bobble. So if your pin's sitting here and it's just kind of floating back and forth across the X ring and you can't seem to get it to stop without that left to right oscillation, what that tells me usually is I need to add a few weights to my front bar. Adding weight to the front bar is really going to settle down your sight picture. However, keep in mind that if you add weight and you start to hold low but your left and right's better, then you can counteract that low hold with adding back weight, as I reviewed earlier. So anytime you get that left to right, just wanting to sit there and go back and forth, one of the things it could be is adding weight to the front bar. Of course, it could be other factors, but that's a good place to try that, add a few ounces and see if that's going to correct that for you. But just to recap that stuff I just went over, if you're getting this left to right hold, add weight to the front bar that you may need to counteract with the back bar as well. If you're getting a high hold or a low hold, that's when you're going to either add or subtract weights from your front or back bar and change up your ratio. So the low hold, take weights off the front bar, add them to the back. High hold, add weights to the front bar or take weights off the back. Either of those two, and just to try to keep your mass weight around where you want it. I like to keep a mass weight of my bow pretty consistent. I don't like to, if I take ounces off my bars, I usually try to just stick with the weights I have on my bow, and I'll move weights around. So say I have 20 on the back and 5 on the front, and I'm getting a high hold, maybe I'll take 1 ounce off the back and then just go ahead and toss it on the front, so that I'll be running 6 and 19. So it's not going to change the overall weight of my bow, it's just going to change how it's going to aim for me. And I've found that works really well for me, and that way you're not making huge changes in the weight of your bow that you're going to maybe fatigue faster from adding that weight, where your body's used to the weight of the bow it is currently. So just adjusting the ratio and moving weights around that are already on your bow, I think is a really good thing to try out for you to see if that's going to work, because like I said, I just think that keeps you comfortable with the bow weight you have, and hopefully it'll alleviate any issues you're having with aiming. So while we're talking about weight ratios and getting a bow to aim well, I also want to point out the reasons that I do the things I do with my personal stabilization setups. You know, why I run a 10-degree disconnect and why I have my bar up higher rather than down low or one of the other mounts on this Prevail 37. And even your bar angle. You know, you see so many different people doing different things, and a lot of times new archers or people ask me questions, you know, they don't really know where to start with getting a setup. So first off, I'll cover the 10-degree disconnect here, which is, you know, just a mount that drops my bar 10 degrees down from perfectly parallel with the ground. So the reason for this is, you know, if you have a sidebar that's kicked way out to the side, it can impose some torque on your riser. And if your stabilizer is coming straight out of your bow, that when it, as I said before, parallel with the ground, when you have that bar kicked way out to the side, and if it torques it at all, it's also going to torque your riser, in turn torquing the stabilizer left or right, varying it from straight line with the target. So what you can do with the 10-degree disconnect is, if you have that imposed torque on your riser from your sidebar, you can actually turn your disconnect and angle the bar in front of you so you can have it pointing straight at the target. This is one of the big things of why I shoot one, to, you know, always keep that stabilizer pointing directly at the target. However, also I think that the 10-degree disconnect, also what it does for me is it slows down my sight picture faster. So when you're drawing your bow back and you hit the back wall, a lot of the times you have some long stabilizers, especially with a ton of weight, you can get some left to right movement just in your riser as the weight's settling down from the draw cycle. However, with this 10-degree disconnect, I feel like that weight really settles down a lot faster, and I can get in the center and start my shot a lot quicker than when I'm running straight out of the bow with no disconnect. So that's really the two biggest reasons why I shoot one of these, and I also really like how it reacts to weight. You know, all the different factors, there's so many benefits that I see with, you know, stabilizer pointing directly at the target, settling down much faster for me, and how it reacts to weights is some of the big factors why I use this particular disconnect on the front. As far as bar angle, that's something I also want to run through here. You know, with your bar angle, it's really something that a lot of people just kind of tinker around with until it feels good. And I want to explain what I see when I adjust my bar angle, and hopefully you can use this with your setting up stabilizers in the future. You know, with your weight ratio, you can adjust how your sight picture is going to look with how the bow is going to aim regarding to the center of the X. However, you can also adjust that with your angle of your sidebar. So when you adjust the angle of your sidebar, whether it be up or down, it's also going to adjust how the bow is sitting in your hand. It's going to adjust, you know, if you're moving this weight down, it's going to make the bow want to point up higher because that weight's a lower center of gravity. So when you drop your bar or raise it, it's going to change how it aims as well. This is something that you can tinker around with if you don't want to mess with your weights. So basically, to break it down, if you angle your sidebar down toward your bottom cam, it's going to act like you have a longer stabilizer. As we covered in video 1, a longer stabilizer needs less weight. So when it acts longer with the same amount of weight, it's going to want to make it aim higher. It's going to want to make it aim up in the dot a little bit better. So if I'm having a low hold and I really don't want to adjust my ratio, I feel like I have a pretty good weight ratio front to back, but I'm just getting that little bit of low hold, I'll drop my bar angle slightly, and a lot of the times what that does is it's going to bring me back up into the center. Obviously the opposite will happen if you're getting a high hold. You can move your bar angle up, and that's going to make it act shorter, and it's going to aim better in the center. So just to recap, if you drop your bar angle, it's going to act like the bar is longer, so it's going to aim up in the target better. Whereas if you move your bar angle upward, it's going to act shorter, and it's going to aim down into the target better. So that's just kind of the two main things with bar angle. I'll go to that if my weight ratio is good and I'm comfortable with it, so that I'll cover that and try to see if that's going to help me out to achieve the sight picture I'm after. And one of the other things here is just position. You know, where do you mount it? Do you mount it up here behind the disconnect? Do you mount it on one of the lower mount holes? You know, what do you do? And that's really something that is going to vary from archer to archer. Your grip style has a lot to do with it. The geometry of the bow, where it's going to aim the best. This higher grip position, I just feel like it's more forgiving for me. Having both of the stabilizers connected in the same position, I feel like I have a lot more control over it. Whereas if it's a lot lower, especially you know, from a torque aspect, if I'm shooting really steep angles uphill and downhill, having those connected in the same position at the same mounting hole, I think is beneficial in that sense. But this is something that really is going to depend on what you like. So I would recommend trying each of the available stabilizer positions on your bow. Test them out, see what you think, and then settle on the one that you feel is the most forgiving and is going to perform and aim as the best you possibly can. But this is just what works for me. It may work for you as well. I would definitely try it up higher like this because I used to shoot a lower bar, and I've settled on this one, and I've really comfortable with it now. So it's something I've found to like, but you could like it in the lower mount or wherever it may be. But as long as it's comfortable for you and the bow aims well for you, that's what we're after. I'm just trying to run through a couple of these things here with adjusting your weight ratios or moving your bar angle or why I do certain things. All this is to help you guys, to try to give you a direction to go and understand what you're doing and how it's going to affect your sight picture. So, things you might find that are a little unconventional, if it works, go with it. If you're comfortable and you can aim with it and you really feel like it's improving your score, shoot it. That's the biggest thing I want to stress about stabilization, because it's such a diverse topic from archer to archer. So when you find something that works for you, just run with it. So that's a lot of the main points I wanted to cover here about the weight ratios and why I do certain things. But thanks for watching this video, guys. If you have any questions, just feel free to shoot me a message and I'm happy to answer it. But stay tuned for later videos, and good luck shooting.